Okay, let's unpack this. We are diving into a topic that it generates more heat than a truck climbing a 7% grade in July.
That's a good way to put it.
The lease purchase agreement in trucking. I mean, you spend 5 minutes in any online forum, any driver lounge, and you'll hear the words scam, trap, company store.
Or the contract that damn near ruined me.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
we've
Mhm.
we've heard it all. And that negative emotional history, it's palpable.
It is.
And we have to start by acknowledging the history is, it's rooted in reality.
Mhm.
There are absolutely companies that design these agreements to benefit the carrier, not the driver. They take advantage of skilled drivers who don't necessarily have a background in complex financial contracts.
They exploit that knowledge gap.
They do.
But our mission today is to move past the emotional narratives. We're here for a deep dive into the facts, the math, and really the aggressive strategy you need to actually win the game. Because what's fascinating is that while the risk is high, the lease purchase model offers something, well, something truly unique.
That's the pivot. That is what we need to focus on for just a minute. Forget the doom and gloom and look at the sheer power of the access it provides.
Right, think about it like this. You, as a prospective business owner, you are potentially starting a multi-$100,000 asset acquisition with little to no money down,
Mm-hmm.
often with no traditional FICO credit check. And sometimes you even get a legitimate walk-away option. And here's the critical distinction from almost any other business. You are stepping into an asset that is already producing revenue from day one.
That's huge. That level of capital access and immediate income, it's almost unheard of for a startup. And we should absolutely recognize the value the listener brings to the table here.
For sure.
I mean, out of over 300 million people in this country, only a few million hold that CDL. You, the listener, you're operating in a highly skilled, high-responsibility lane. That skill is the real equity you're trading.
And our goal is to translate that high-value skill into a bulletproof business strategy. So we need a roadmap. We're going to cover the foundational business setup, aggressive expense control, that's the non-negotiable part-smart carrier choice, and the absolutely vital break-even math.
So let's start at the beginning, establishing your entity.
Yeah.
This is where the business begins, and it's the first crucial mistake so many drivers make.
Yeah.
If you're entering a lease purchase and you're still treating it like a W-2 job, mixing your personal and business money, you're just sacrificing all your liability protection and your financial clarity.
You've got to separate church and state
Well,
immediately.
Immediately.
So practically speaking, what does that separation look like for a new owner-operator?
At a minimum, you need two things. First, the legal entity,
Mm.
an LLC, maybe an S-corp, depending on your tax situation.
Mhm.
But that shields your personal assets, your house, your car. Second, you immediately open a separate business checking account. Get an EIN, an employer identification number. Every single truck expense, every settlement check, it has to flow through that business account. This isn't just about looking professional.
It's a firewall.
It's a firewall. It gives you a clean audit trail.
Now, I hear a lot of advice floating around, for startups about immediately chasing business credit, getting a DUNS number, securing net 30 accounts. But you're suggesting that it often falls flat in this initial phase. Why is that?
It's common advice, but it's really misplaced at this stage. Debtor Bradstreet scores, they work best when you're dealing with specific vendors or you need these huge established lines of credit. A brand new owner-operator needs liquidity. Now,
Cash.
the smarter move isn't chasing paper credit. It's building a powerful relationship with a local or a regional bank that values cold, hard cash flow.
Because what that bank sees is a regular, large deposit from a carrier every single week. That shows immediate income, which is often way more valuable than a low FICO score tied to some old student loans or something.
Exactly. Cash is still king. The more liquidity you have flowing through that business checking account, the better your relationship with your financial partner becomes. That gives you leverage when you need financing for a major repair or for the next truck.
Building liquidity. That's the real credit game.
That's the game.
And that brings us to the part of the business plan that I think requires the most ruthless self-assessment. And it's often the single most important factor: household overhead.
Your first business is your household. Before you even think about freight rates, before you worry about cost per mile, you have to control what you spend at home. And look, this isn't just financial advice.
It's business leverage.
It is 100% a matter of business leverage.
Okay, so explain the danger here. Use some concrete numbers.
Mhm.
How does high personal spending literally destroy a trucking operation?
Because high personal overhead immediately dictates your business decisions,
Yeah.
and usually for the worse. Let's say your household expenses, mortgage, car payments, debt, utilities, are demanding $5,000 every single month. That means you need $1,250 in net profit every single week just to stay afloat at home.
Wow, that is some intense pressure.
It is. And that pressure forces you to take bad loads. When a dispatcher calls you with a $1.50 per mile run, but you know your true break-even is $1.40, and you absolutely have to generate that $12.50 this week, you take the load.
You have no choice.
You run 14-hour days, you chase miles you shouldn't, and you accept freight that barely clears your operating costs.
Yeah.
And it's all because your mortgage, not the company, is forcing your hand.
So the realization is the company isn't the one forcing you into a bad business decision. Your own personal fixed costs are eroding your leverage, and they're leaving you desperate.
Precisely. You lose the power to say no. The survival rule of thumb, based on successful single truck operations, is this. Try to keep your home expenses at maximum overhead between $2,500 and $3,000 max.
2,500 to 3,000.
If you can maintain that low overhead, you have massive power on the road to decline loads, to negotiate, and to wait for the profitable freight. That is the true leverage in this game.
That's a powerful transition because once you control your internal environment, then you can focus on the external one. Carrier selection. Let's move into that and talk about choosing your partner wisely.
Carrier selection is profoundly important, especially today. I mean, we're in 2026. The logistics landscape has been brutal. We've seen major, long-established names go under from over-leverage and just undisciplined growth.
And you, the operator, you cannot afford to tie yourself to a carrier that's hanging on by a thread.
Because their financial instability becomes yours.
Yeah.
Very quickly.
Okay, so if a driver has their LLC set up, they've controlled their overhead, and they're ready to look at contracts. What are the non-negotiables they have to demand from a carrier partner?
First, good, reliably maintained equipment. You don't want a constant repair bill. Second, consistent freight that minimizes deadhead. And third, and this is the most critical in the LP space, crystal clear business practices.
Meaning?
Meaning clear, easy to read contracts, totally transparent deductions, and absolutely no forced dispatch games.
Okay, let's nail that last point down. What does a forced dispatch game look like in practice? How does a driver defend against it?
It's often really subtle. It's designed to exploit the pressure we just talked about.
Okay.
A carrier might not technically force you to take a load. They'll give you the option to refuse.
But there's a catch.
There's always a catch.
Yeah.
They structure the routing so that if you refuse a marginal load, the next available one is 600 miles away. So they're essentially punishing you with 6 hours of uncompensated deadhead time. Or they'll apply a penalty charge for refusing too many loads.
So the defense is to ask up front, if I refuse this load, what is the clear consequence, and what does my next profitable freight option look like?
Exactly. If they can't provide those answers clearly before you sign, that should be your answer about the partnership. Transparency is the bedrock. But even a transparent carrier can't save the driver who hasn't internalized the math. This is where the game is won or lost. If you don't understand the math will absolutely understand you.
Okay, so let's break down the critical financial metrics every lease purchase operator needs to master. This requires a calculator and zero emotion.
Right. We need to define 3 things you have to know and track weekly. First, your fixed weekly costs. These are constant. Truck payment, commercial insurance premium, parking, any minimum weekly fees. They happen whether you run 1,000 miles or 3,000.
Got it. Second.
Your variable cost per mile. These fluctuate with how much you drive. Fuel, tolls, and critically your necessary per mile contribution to your own maintenance savings fund. This might be 70 cents a mile, maybe $1 a mile, depends on the truck.
And the third metric puts these two together into the single most important number, the true break-even CPM, cost per mile. Can you walk us through a simple example?
For sure. Let's assume you have fixed costs of $1,000 a week. That's your truck payment insurance. And let's say you want to run 2,500 miles a week, which is a pretty common target.
Okay, so $1,000 fixed divided by 2,500 miles.
That means 40 cents of every single mile you drive is just to cover your fixed payments. Now you add your variable cost. Let's say fuel, maintenance, and tolls average out to 70 cents per mile.
So 40 cents plus 70 cents.
Your true operating cost is $1.10 CPM, $1.10.
Okay, $1.10 CPM just to keep the truck running and the bank paid. That doesn't even account for company deductions or, profit.
Exactly. Now we add back in those mandatory carrier deductions, the insurance chargebacks, escrow fees, I have to prep, all that. Let's assume that adds another 30 cents per mile. Now your true break-even CPM is 140.
$1.40. That single number changes everything.
It does. Because a load that pays $3 per mile sounds fantastic. But if you have a 10% deadhead ratio and heavy deductions, that $3 can quickly become, say, $1.60 or $1.70 net.
And if your break even is 140?
Your actual profit is only 20 or 30 cents per mile, not the $1.60 you might have been hoping for. The bottom line is unforgiving. If the load doesn't clear a profit after everything, fixed costs, variable costs, and all deductions, it is a bad load. Period.
That brings us perfectly into our third section, defense mechanisms. How do you defend your highly leveraged business against the inevitable, which is unexpected costs and downtime?
Defense starts with understanding the company's financial mechanisms, especially the escrow and maintenance deductions. They blindside so many drivers. A carrier may withhold, say, 15 cents per mile into a maintenance fund. While that sounds helpful,
It's their control over your funds tied to their asset.
that's it. That company-held money feels like a safety net, but it's often more restrictive than protective.
So what's the winning mindset?
The winning mindset has to be, anything the company deducts from you, whether it's for maintenance or escrow, you have to treat it as already gone. It is not your emergency fund. It is the company's reserve for the truck's needs.
So you still need to audit those deductions, make sure the money is going where it's supposed to.
Oh, absolutely. But you cannot rely on it for your survival.
So on top of those deductions, the driver needs to build their own cash fortress.
Yes, you must build your own emergency fund. At least 6 weeks of your fixed weekly costs. And not just the truck payment, your full household overhead too. Because downtime doesn't care about your feelings. Breakdowns don't pause your weekly payments.
Right.
If you rely only on the company's escrow and you need 2 weeks off the road for a major engine repair, you could easily fall so far behind on payments, you put the whole contract in jeopardy. Cash reserves save lease purchase drivers. Hope does not.
That's financial defense. But the other side of that coin is compliance. We can't forget that the entire revenue stream sits on top of your golden ticket, your CDL.
Protecting the CDL is a critical business defense. It's something operators sometimes overlook in the rush of the week. But getting sidelined by log violations, drug and alcohol problems, a lapsed medical card, that means you immediately start generating revenue.
But the truck bill doesn't stop.
The truck bill never stops. So tracking that medical card expiration, sticking to HOS rules, maintaining absolute discipline, those aren't just regulations. They are fundamental calendar tasks for a business owner.
And this all culminates in the final stage of strategy, defining what winning actually looks like. The critique often focuses on the trap, but winners, they define their exit before they ever turn the key.
They do. And let's clarify one of those key terms we mentioned earlier, the walkaway option. A lot of drivers misunderstand this. It usually means you forfeit every penny you've paid in, all deposits, all payments, but you avoid any further debt on the truck. It's a defensive strategy to limit loss.
It's not a path to profit.
Not at all.
So what does a winning goal look like?
Winners define that strategic goal up front. Is the strategy simply to pay the truck off so you own the asset outright in 3 or 4 years? Is it using the low entry barrier to rapidly build a massive cash reserve, say $50,000 to $70,000, for your next move, like buying a used truck outright or getting your own authority?
Or maybe it's just a temporary controlled training ground.
Exactly. To learn the business operations and expense tracking without the enormous down payment required for a brand new vehicle.
That reframes the entire agreement. If you view the lease purchase as a finite, structured strategy with a defined outcome, it stops being a potential prism. It becomes a stepping stone.
That is the essential takeaway. A lease purchase isn't automatically bad. It is just unforgiving of undisciplined business practices. It forces you to operate with a financial discipline that many owner-operators, even established ones, often lack. You have to adopt the rigorous mentality of a CFO who also happens to drive a truck.
So let's bring this all together for you. The 2 pillars of winning the lease purchase game are strict financial discipline, low overhead at home, constant and detailed math tracking on the road, and smart partnership choices. That means demanding carrier transparency, auditing deductions, and defining your strategic exit goal before the contract is even signed.
Run it like a real business. Maintain that clear financial separation, master your true break-even CPM, and establish cash reserves that cover your downtime. If you do that, you can survive the challenges that wipe out most people in this industry.
And many of you listening, you aren't just here to survive, you're here to win. But let's leave you with one final thought to mull over as you plan your strategy. If you don't define the exit before you sign that paper, if you don't establish the precise conditions for when and how you leave that contract successfully, the contract and the company will define it for you, often with painful, financially limiting consequences. So what is your non-negotiable definition of a successful exit from this agreement? Think about that as you plan your next move.